Cool. So first up, what WTF is retrieval augmented generation? So putting it simply, retrieval augmented generation, it combines like a retrieval based technique with generative AI and basically starts to ground your agent in sort of information that is true for your business and that sort of thing. And it does that by fetching external information and then passing it on to the LLM for the creation of the text. Do you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
So how does it work? So as you can see here, I thought this was a pretty good diagram. So essentially the user has their query. It then goes into the retrieval model where it will look through a knowledge base and then provide back relevant docs. It then puts the relevant docs with the query and hands that over to an LLM, and then the LLM does the response back to the user. So there's a fair bit going on when it does retrieve something from a knowledge base.
Pete, quick question. As I'm opening a poll right now in the chat on knowledge bases and RAG, just to get an idea of how people are using it today. Some people might know the word knowledge base, right? You show it here. Can you double down on a little bit of difference of where RAG plays in addition to a knowledge base or alongside of?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess retrieval augmented generation is the kind of process of the whole thing. So your knowledge base is generally it could be a vector database, it could be a graph database or something like that. And that's kind of where you store all the information. So if you're using Voiceflow's one, we've created a custom vector database, which takes your documents, converts it into lots and lots of embeddings, and then enables the vector database to search those embeddings based on what the query is.
Sweet, thank you for the extra definition.
No,
early votes. We got a lot. No one is not planning on using knowledge base and RAG. Everyone's either working on it or starting with an internal use case. So definitely plays into what you're going to be talking about here.
Awesome. So one of the things which is really important when you are building a RAG solution is how you format documents. And the reason for this is you can kind of think of a RAG solution like if you can format a document that makes it really easy for a human to read, then I should turn off my Slack notifications, really, shouldn't I?
It's me DMing you saying, hey, good job. No, kidding.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, if you format your documents in a way that is easily readable by a human, then they'll be easily readable by the LLM as well. So what you want to start to think about is having a structured layout of your documents. So organize the content with clear headings and make them easy to navigate. I always try to put summaries near the beginning of a document, which basically explains quickly what this particular document is about. Highlight key items that might be in there. So in this instance, we're doing recipes. So you might want to be putting sort of keywords in there like chicken or beef or, vegetarian, things like that. You want to have consistent formatting throughout all your documents because this makes your documents far more predictable to read for the RAG service. Bullet points are really good at distilling complex ideas into chunks. You want to avoid jargon. Because like who likes jargon? No one does. Short paragraphs are best. So if you have sort of these really big dense parts of text, you want to break them into more readable things. And if you did have super big documents, maybe start them with a table of contents because that actually makes it easier for a retrieval system to go, okay, like I know this information is within this document. I will keep searching within this document to find that thing.
Really quick question. You're giving these tips because there's clearly like a wrong way to do this, right? So typically if someone's starting with knowledge base, I see that as like, oh, they're going to put maybe their pricing page on, but the pricing page is like has a slider and it's very like image heavy or it's not searchable, right? Are there any other examples of like what not to do or like why are you recommending how to format, I guess is my question.
Yeah, look, I would say like a great way to start is by, you can import your websites and all that sort of stuff, but your websites might not actually just be optimized for that kind of retrieval. And it can mean that it makes it harder for the knowledge base, for instance, to find the information. That's not to say it won't, but this is kind of giving you your best chance to find that information each time.
Yeah, had a few questions about formatting. Before we answer them one by one, Pete, you'll show a pretty good example of that today, right?
Yep. I think potentially on the next page.
Yeah, let me do that. Sam, Amir, Richard, we'll jump into that exactly, and then we'll circle back to your questions on formatting too.
Yeah. So as you can see here, I have formatted this document in a markdown format. So the single hash is an H1, the double hash is an H2. And essentially, I've just done it in a really clear and consistent way. And just made this like quite easy for the document to search. So as you can see, we have like the rating at the start. We've got the cuisine as Mexican. So that's kind of your keyword there. Difficulty is easy. It's got the time there, the image and the recipe source. It's got the author. Then we've got a few trigger questions. So I want to make fajitas. Can you provide me with an easy recipe? What's a quick way to prepare a delicious chicken fajitas at home? Stuff like that to make it a bit easier. And then we have the summary, which basically explains what this web page or document has, ingredients, and then preparation, and sort of goes through there. And that's kind of how I've done this to make the documents easier for search.
Got it. And did you take this from an existing recipe?
Yeah, so the way that I did this was, I mean, this was actually a really long way of doing this because unfortunately I couldn't find a New York Times API or anything. But I basically was copying all the text from the New York Times cooking website. I was just going through my favorites. And I was then putting them through a prompt with GPT-4. And I would recommend that, actually it's something that we will share at the end, is this prompt with using GPT-4. So if you did have any developer resources, you can start to like just send documents through a GPT-4 API and like pump that stuff out, and you can start getting these text documents back. Or, if you don't have developer resources or something like that, if you have a subscription to ChatGPT Plus, you can use GPT-4. And in theory, you should be able to get at least 50 documents through it every 3 hours. I think that's their limit at the moment. But yeah.
So yeah, you'll share that prompt. You'll show how to use the prompt, and then we'll share it at the end. If you do have developer resources or there's an API to the content that you're pulling, that makes the job increasingly easy for, let's say, an internal use case or a customer database per se, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. So essentially, basically, the prompt that I have here, it basically says, format the document in this based on the template that I will provide you. And then it sort of has the document in there pasted in. And then we have the templatized prompt, which goes afterwards. And as you can see, this is just using ChatGPT Plus. I've just put in the content for, I think it's the Voiceflow knowledge base and how it works. And you can see it just kind of puts it in the format that I want it to be in. And then, does that really quickly. So we'll share that all at the end, and then you can have something which will be able to, kind of augment that experience, because formatting all your documents for retrieval augmented generation, when you if you had to do that manually, that would take years.
Yeah. Putting that on right to Sam's comment, just like this is a daunting task, right? And the idea of this workshop obviously is not to show, okay, we're going to iterate each document. We'll automate that, give you the prompt at the end, but a lot of the time on the build, which we're about to hop into, will be more about how you're actually implementing the RAG solution into an agent for easy searching. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. And now Pete will jump into to show a little bit more about what's possible on Canvas.
Yep, sweet. All right, let's go. This is one.
While
So,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no. I was going to jump straight in, but if you,
oh, nice. You were ready with the screen share. I'm impressed. Okay, jump in. Go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is obviously add. Whoops. We're going to add all the documents into our knowledge base. Now, I will say this Voiceflow project, I have gone through, done this before, and I'm not going to need to create a lot of the variables from scratch. But that is because basically I wanted to make this so we're not focusing on the stuff which really doesn't matter. Like, whoops, I only did one of them. We're not focusing on the stuff that doesn't really matter. And we're focusing more on the build itself. So, okay, here we go. So these are all, my favorites from New York Times cooking, all the things that we eat a lot at home, and they're all really nice and quick generally, except for a couple of 8-hour meals. So they are all in there. All right, awesome. Now, what we will now go into is we're going to go into the Canvas. So for those who don't use Voiceflow or haven't used Voiceflow before, this is kind of the starting place of all your assistants. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a welcome message. Now, as I said, I've built this a few times before. A few things that I'm going to do here, I'm just going to be copying a lot of prompts, because when you are doing, I guess you would call it prompt design now, or prompt engineering, or whatever you want to call it, it can take quite a long time to debug why something is or isn't working. And I think it's more important to show you the kind of what you can do in a quick period of time, rather than focus on tweaking a prompt. I don't think that would be that interesting to watch. And just as a bit of hygiene, it's always good to color your blocks and color your lines and those sorts of things. I always do green for the happy path, and then I color my anything which is like a talk or a listen sort of block with blue. So we have our prompt here saying this is the first message, welcome the user to New York Times Cooking, and ask what they would like to cook. And then we have down here, this is the system prompt. And what this prompt does is it actually informs your kind of tone and that sort of thing that we're going to be providing. And I use this a lot throughout the design. And it's the same system prompt, and it's just, the idea is to inform the tone. If we want to have a quick look and see what it says. It says, welcome to New York Times Cooking. It's a pleasure to have you with us. What type of dish are you in the mood today? It's doing the right sort of thing. Okay, so then what we are going to do is chuck a capture block down here. And the capture block, we're not using intents in this design. We are just using capture, and we're going to capture that, whatever the user says, and apply it to the last utterance. Now, next up, we are going to grab the API block. Now, I want to make sure for anyone not technical here, I am also not technical. I can't code, and this stuff is super, super easy to do. So what we're going to do here is call this on KB query get chunks only. And we are going to put this as a green line. We're going to make that a little bit straighter, because that will just really start to bug me if it's on a slant. And then I always color my developer blocks as orange. There is no real reason for this. It's just kind of what I've always done. We're going to change this to a post request, because that's the kind of request that we're doing. And now what we will do is grab all the information. So as you saw before, I uploaded all the documents into the knowledge base. Now we go into Voiceflow's integration section. And what we can do here is we can grab a couple of things. So first up, we're going to grab the URL that we're going to use for that post request. So we'll put that there. Ooh. Put that one back there. And then we are going to grab the knowledge base API key. So this is basically the API key that is unique to this thing. So Give me 2 secs and I'll just grab up. So first we'll do here is we'll go authorization. I always have to like restrain myself and not write in a UK English there. And then we're going to do content dash type and we'll write application slash JSON. Now, the reason that we are doing that is because we are going to basically put a little bit of JavaScript here, which basically, I'll put this here so you can see it because it doesn't wrap. So basically what we're doing here is we're giving an instruction to the knowledge base to find a recipe based on user's request. And whoops, sorry, this should be last utterance, not last utterance. Let me just quickly make sure. So yeah, this should be based on last utterance. And basically, it's going to search the knowledge base looking for something. I've turned synthesis off, so that's been made false. And the chunk limit is 4. So what this means is that we're not going to do an LLM to kind of tweak the question for retrieval. We're just going to ask it to return 4 chunks, which is about 1,000 tokens worth of data. So we're going to do that there. And what we can do quickly is do a quick test. So I want something with chicken. Okay, let's see what we get back. And as you can see, it's worked. So we're getting the easiest chicken noodle soup, ginger lime chicken, you know, a few different things. So we're getting all this back. So we know that the API is working, which thank goodness for that, because I really didn't want to have to try to debug anything in front of everyone. Alrighty.
Pete, quick follow. This is the, you're calling the knowledge base API here, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the knowledge base that is unique to this particular workspace, we're calling that API.
Because
so
you've curated the knowledge base of content, so now you're just calling that curated content. Got it.
Exactly. So when we send over this version to you guys to be able to have a play of this, you won't have this in there because this is the knowledge base key for this particular workspace. And basically, you'll need to add the documents to your workspace and put in this API key, and then basically everything in theory should work. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, whoops, I'll just grab this over. And what we're going to do now is stringify the JSON, or the JavaScript that comes back from the project. And the reason that we're going to do this, and I will show you, so this is going to be stored in chunks. So if you don't stringify the response, this is what you will get back. Basically, our variables can't store JavaScript objects, and you need to turn your JavaScript into a string. So otherwise you'll get this. I want something with chicken. And then you will get this. Oh, actually, I just realized why that didn't work. I hadn't actually done this capture response part. Give me 2 secs. I wasn't sending it anywhere. So we want to do response.chunks, and we want to apply that to chunks. Okay, that will now work. So what this will do is what you'll see here is I want something with chicken. And you'll just see it just says object, object, object over and over and over. So what we're going to do, so it doesn't do that, is we're going to stringify the JavaScript so that it can be read by a variable or displayed by a variable. So here we go. And we're going to call this, so we're going to do extract data, because we're going to have a few different blocks sitting in this thing. So we'll label them all under extract data. And basically, we want to do, so stringify chunks. We're going to put this to here. And I'll just grab what I've already done here. So give me a sec. And then we go stringify, JSON.stringify chunks. We've got that there. And then that should now go, if we went back here and we do chunks, that should now provide everything to us. So if we went, I want something with chicken. And you'll see a huge load of text. So we're getting everything now, which is awesome because that's what we wanted. Alrighty.
Hey,
so
Pete, really quickly, some good questions in the chat that I think will help give some context. A few people who've played with knowledge base before are wondering, okay, great, can't we just use knowledge base? Like, why are we doing this, right? So can you give maybe the short idea of like why you're going that step further? Both options are fine, but this is a step further from an LLM prompting perspective.
So why I am doing this is essentially I want to be able to kind of supercharge what you can do with the knowledge base. So if you just use the knowledge base as it stands, it's great for a kind of question, answer, response sort of thing. But what I'm actually doing is I'm going to be doing kind of search and then dynamically populating things that are in the knowledge base based on a user's query. So you'll see that very, very soon. Because what we're about to do is start, we're going to, oh, sorry, we're not going to do JavaScript yet. We're going to do another prompt. And we're going to do a set AI thing. So what we will be doing here, again, this prompt was already written. And basically what you can see here is we're going to be taking those 4 chunks and we're going to be finding the best recipe that matches the user's utterance. And then if they find it, then we're going to return it in a JSON format. So we'll have name, and that will go into the recipe name, description, image, recipe URL, recipe link, and that sort of thing. So by doing this, like we're going to be extracting all that information which sits within our documents. And then we will, I'll just do extract recipe info. And then we're going to be passing it on to this JavaScript step, which is basically going to pass all that info and apply it to different variables. And you'll see where I use all that fairly soon. But what this basically is doing is it's going, okay, like take this, forgot to do that, put it to KB output. Basically, it's going, okay, look at KB output, that variable, and find the recipe name, the things listed as recipe name, recipe description, recipe URL, and all that, and apply them to those variables so that basically we can use them later. Okay, so what we will now do is I'm going to do a logic block, and we'll drop that under here. And what we will do is then go, if we didn't find a recipe, and we'll do KB output is, what was the thing? Do that. Actually, we don't want it to be is, we want it to be contains. So we'll just grab that. And then we'll do another one, and we'll change this to an or. And we want to go KB output is empty. So just in case, you know, it doesn't get anything in the response back, then we'll just ignore it and we'll say that we didn't find anything. Or like if we do get something back, but maybe there's nothing in the recipe name or something like that, it comes out as zeros. And this is basically to try handle the fact that maybe it might hallucinate a recipe in the description, but like, you know, and then it'll kind of, we're basically trying to avoid that. So, and we'll do if recipe name is empty as well. So do that, and then we'll do the no match. So basically any other thing. So if we do find a recipe. Okay, so I'm going to make this one purple, as this one has a whole heap of logic, and I generally make things which have logic purple. All right, so then let's do the fun part, and let's actually like generate a recipe. Okay, so we found a recipe, and I've already done these prompts before, so you know they should work. And we do prompt settings. We'll grab the one from over here. And I think what were the settings that we had here? We want to do this at 3.15, and we want to put this at 150. And I just realized I didn't change the prompt settings on the other one. And I can quickly explain why it's important to sort of do these different prompt settings. So essentially, what I'm doing here is I'm turning down the temperature to just 0.1, and I am turning that to 800. So what it means when you turn down the temperature is essentially the way an LLM works is it's predicting the next token in a string of tokens. Now, when you turn down the temperature, it's always going to go for the most likely next token. Whereas when you turn up the temperature, you start going to a less likely token to happen next. And that starts to make it actually less formulaic and more kind of quote unquote creative than what you would expect. And I've heard some people talk about temperature as kind of dialing up and down the creativity. Essentially, when we don't, well, humans don't necessarily always speak in a way that is the most predictable next word. We kind of throw in different words based on, you know, our own brain retrieving that next word, kind of like a LLM generating our string of tokens. And this is really basically, you know, restraining the LLM from going too wild and being too creative. In this instance, for instance, with this JavaScript, we don't want it to add extra stuff that we don't need. We want it to be really like straight down the line and like that. And with here again, like we've given a lot of details about what we want here. So we just want it to do what we've asked. Now, next up, what we will do is we're going to add all the details for the recipe card. So we want to grab the card here, and I'm going to use this. And this is where we can use those variables that we have stored. So recipe image, recipe name, recipe description. Now, it's worth noting actually in that when you have a look at this yourself, all of these, you'll actually have to click on the variables and create them yourself, because when you copy a project over, the variables don't necessarily already exist. You need to do that yourself. And then we'll go recipe URL. Okay, so we've got that all there. We'll make this blue because oh no, that one should be green. And then we will go into capture here. Now I'm just going to basically make this URL. Once you click on the URL and you hit the button, we want to make it wait for the user to say something else. All right, let's give this a test. Okay, so let me see. Do that. I would like something with chicken. And hopefully this all works. So it's found something by the looks. And as you can see, we've got this easiest chicken noodle soup. We probably need to like fix up the prompt here because it says, yes, the recipe for easiest chicken noodle soup aligns with the user's request. So I probably need to, fix that up a little bit. But as we can see, it's pulled the image link from the RAG solution and from the document, I should say. It's populated the name, and we also have the description, and fingers crossed, it's also grabbed the URL. I actually don't know if you can see the URL, which I just...
We won't see the second page, but it does show that it jumped to that page.
Yeah, so it did do it. So I can confirm it did bring up a URL and then work from there. And it opened up the New York Times cooking website. All right. So now what do we do if we want to, if it didn't find a recipe? Perhaps the person using this has asked for something really strange. Okay, so, and actually what I will also do, remember how I was talking about how it's really useful to name your blocks? That's because you can start to do this. So what happened before is it jumped, it couldn't go anywhere. And now basically it will go somewhere once we ask a question. So if we go, this is going to be red, didn't find recipe, and we'll make this one red as well because the sky is falling in and it didn't work and we didn't find anything. And we will just use this prompt based on last utterance, let the user know that you didn't find anything. And we'll use that same prompt here. So if we said, I don't know, what's something weird that we could ask for? Do you have any recipes with salt water and rocks? Something like that.
I don't know if I'd like to try that if they did.
Yeah, I mean, if any, cooking outlet is going to have something, I could imagine New York Times going out there and doing something weird. So I couldn't find a recipe with those ones. And if I said I am looking for something that would be nice during summer, hopefully it looks through. I'm thinking maybe a salad or something like that would be delicious. And it has returned sweet and spicy grilled vegetables with burrata. That does sound pretty delicious. And then we could do, remember we had like time as one of the things. So I am looking to cook something this Sunday and I have 8 hours to cook it. What should I make? Hopefully, I literally haven't tried this before, so I have no idea if this would work. I'm bringing in the whole breaking bots mentality to it.
There you
go. So hopefully we get something back. Slow cook. I forgot that I actually had a slow cooker Sunday sauce. So again, we're pulling that back, and we're getting that slow cooker Sunday sauce, which is apparently a big thing in American Italian households. So there you go.
That is powerful, Peter. I love the you talked about the why do this beyond just knowledge base. Well, today, from like a back and forth question and answer, knowledge base is not going to be returning this level of detail, right? Or this level of personalization, which is why you're taking it that step further from a technical perspective, right? Brian, exactly. Brian asked a good question, and I want to bring it up on screen because I think you addressed it in the last couple examples here. But typically people are thinking, oh, like RAG solution limited to 3 responses, very FAQ based. When you're showing they're actually specific, but generally specific questions like Sunday, right? How have you designed this to kind of combat that normal approach to, oh, well, you can't, what are you going to do with broad questions and a RAG solution?
I mean, I guess like, because you are returning a whole heap of chunks, and then you're allowing the LLM to kind of evaluate whether it has return something that is relevant or not, you can kind of go like in this one, we have that status 00 or whatever. So basically, if it doesn't find anything that is relevant to what the user has asked, it'll just say, I don't know. And that's kind of the way that you would avoid, when someone asks something a bit too broad or basic that doesn't, get directly answered by the RAG, then that's kind of how you would go. I think that's kind of what you were asking. Sorry if that's not quite right.
And I think even with the idea where his example is you have a recipe for chicken, like you did say, can I have something with chicken, right? And this is able to take the chicken intent per se, but without any intents, LLM is able to obviously have surface content with the button.
Yeah, exactly.
Wanted to call out Scott's point too, just as a way to improve this, instead of just the view recipe and like, let's say you extended this to a native type of like recipe site or recipe app, could be pretty awesome to obviously have those then ingredients, which you already have in the knowledge base, right, immediately added to some sort of list.
Oh, 100%. Like I could see this working by going, okay, once you've chosen a recipe, then what we would do is go, okay, like we now know the document ID that the user is interested in. Then now let's pull all the information from that recipe into a variable. And then we'll allow our user to query things. So say that they like, okay, I've chosen this, I want to cook this now. And then you could get the LLM to talk them through step by step, like what they were trying to do. And, maybe, the recipe is like, oh, next do a mirepoix. And the user's like, what the hell is a mirepoix? And because you've got an LLM that knows like basic information about the world, it could explain what like a mirepoix cut is.
That's awesome. Brian followed up talking about, great. So you want to say, show me all the recipes with chicken versus show me one. Is this something that your solution could do here, or would it be a different approach?
Look, what this is doing at the moment is, yes, technically you could do that. In this actual solution at the moment, it's only going to do one at a time, more because the amount of work that I would have had to do in the JavaScript step, kind of going, okay, so working out like how many recipes have we found, how many recipes have we found, and then applying those images to different cards and all that sort of stuff. It just would have been a lot. But in theory, I mean, if you go like in here and we go send a request and we go, show me all the recipes with chicken that you have. So we can see what it returns back. And so at the moment it's found ginger lime, easiest chicken soup, chicken dumpling, another chicken one. So it's only finding 4 chunks. So basically I have this set to 4 chunks at the moment, but if you were able to go higher than that, then yeah, in theory, you could just start, making it bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and then assigning that data to a carousel of cards, for example, or maybe you have a native interface and you're extending that to say, okay, great, like it's an iPad app of sorts, right? You're boom, 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 you're putting it across from a chat perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but the reg solution allows you to have that flexibility to then call it and then have it show up however you'd like. Brian, thanks for your questions there and kind of workshopping it with us too. We got a few more what ifs here, Pete, if you don't mind kind of jamming through. People are excited about your use case. Retrieve specific recipes specific to a client. Could we have a knowledge base about a client to make sure we're looking for recipes specific to them based on allergies, likes, dislikes?
Yeah. In theory, using the knowledge base API, you could start creating knowledge bases that are unique to the customer. You could also do that, I guess, if you had access to an API. So say if rather than using the knowledge base, you could do it kind of either way. You could do it where you search via an API and you get the LLM to search and pull those things. Or you could basically have a knowledge base per customer and use the knowledge base API to create a new knowledge base per customer each time. And essentially, I think it would just be a matter of, you would end up having a whole, well, in Voiceflow anyway, you would have a whole heap of different Voiceflow projects that are unique to that customer and just have their data within that.
Another thing I was thinking about is using KB tags to like tag based on allergy per se, and doing some sort of data collection at the top to be like, do you have allergies? Let the user prompt you, and then you spit out based on the tags within the RAG too.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know that some of the stuff that we're starting to do with Tico, we're doing some fairly personalized type. We're doing like personalized knowledge bases in a way. So if you sign up to the Voiceflow like Discord, I'm not sure if this is implemented yet, but I know this is the kind of thinking about it that we're starting to think about, is that, you know, you say what kind of level you are, whether you're a conversation designer, whether you're a developer, whether you're a product owner or something like that. And then basically we know that information about you now, so that we can assign that to that user. And then we can start creating these long-term memory things where we go, okay, like, we know this user is a developer, for instance. So when they ask a question, we will hit the developer-based knowledge base, which then returns information in a way that is more relevant to a developer. So maybe we would provide you with code that you can understand. Whereas maybe for a conversation designer, we would step you through step by step into how to do something in a bit more granular detail. So yeah.
That's a great example. And then even to this cooking example, let's say you are HelloFresh or a meal delivery system, you have some sort of onboarding flow with each user, right? Now, when that user comes back and you have, let's say, a customer experience agent in app that helps you pick what recipes for that week, let's say, you'd already have that tag to the knowledge base for their gluten-free data set, for example, right?
Exactly. So you could have that kind of memory about the user, and then only serve them gluten-free recipes, or recipes that can be kind of gluten-free-ified.
Awesome. So we got about 15 minutes here. We do have some good questions and like use case specific questions still, which is awesome. Appreciate all the ideas and kind of taking Peter's idea and running with it. That's exactly what we hope with the idea of making bots here. Pete, before we rifle through maybe a few more of these questions at the end of the hour, any other thing you wanted to call out on the project here before we keep talking with the chat?
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that I would say is, while this is like really cool, like what you actually would potentially be worried about here is your LLM hallucinating recipes and potentially hallucinating, you know, your recipe name or URL and that sort of thing. Now, what would be better is to actually use metadata and pull that metadata out using JavaScript. So potentially what you could have, for instance, is within the document name, you would actually have the name of the recipe and the URL in there, and yeah, do it like that. In theory, you could potentially use the knowledge base tags to have a tag which has the URL of where you've got, like, you could in theory hack it a bit together to you know, put the name and the description and the URL within tags of each document, and then, you know, pull that out using the JavaScript step and display it. So taking away the kind of generation part of the of that sort of thing, because what we are doing here is we are actually looking at this thing and generating something new. Like, this doesn't exist like that before. We're taking data and formatting it, and that is, you know, you could maybe have some hallucinations there. We didn't just then, but it's definitely possible.
How do you feel like if someone's, let's say, building their first agent that uses Gen AI of some sort in a customer-facing environment, right? Would you say that this approach is a little bit more of a guardrailed, you know, you have a higher confidence rate of lack of hallucinations, or at least more of a one-to-one, without having to hard code all the intents, right? Like, for example, New York Times would probably never build this with a very NLU first mindset, right? It wouldn't make much sense for them to do that. So if they're going to go ahead this way, it's better than just opening an open AI prompt, right? Like that's would you say that's a part of the reason you went this far with the guardrails of the AI here?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think doing something like this where you can ground everything in your company data is much better. And you could even start adding in prompts. Something that I've been working on the last week or so is basically starting to when you retrieve information, and this is more of a customer support use case, but once you retrieve the information, you have a prompt that extracts everything that's relevant to what the customer says. Then you have another prompt that takes that extracted information and turns it into a response. And then you have a final prompt that checks and goes, is the response that we've generated like true? So does it match with the extracted information? And then if it doesn't, don't deliver the response. And when I'm doing this, I'm generally trying to use GPT-4 at the very end, but only for a very small portion of it. And that GPT-4 prompt seems to quite accurately predict whether something has been there's something not truthful within that response or not.
That's a great example of not using the same model in the prompt settings across your entire assistant from a token perspective. Using GPT-4 for the large scale logic projects. That actually rolls right into Rob's question. He was talking about, okay, in this example, someone wanted to substitute an ingredient after you served the recipe, right? Would that be an example where you, Pete, if you have that brief in front of you, would you use then a new prompt to like an LLM versus a knowledge base to help someone swap out that information?
Yes. So I think you would have to have something which basically the user chooses that recipe or some way to hold each of the recipes in. I mean, maybe you could do it like, I'm trying to think how you could do it. Maybe you could, when we call the knowledge base. So if we do this again, like, show me all the recipes that you have with chicken. What you can see is that we have each of these chunks. So you would have to be able to basically store each of these chunks within their own variables, and then enable the LLM to look at the right chunk. So at that point in time, and then look at the actual recipe ingredients, and then allow it to do that for you. So yeah, it's totally possible.
It's a level of effort in the sense of like pairing up the chunks once you've imported the information, right? But it's completely possible to go from like a knowledge-based RAG solution and then say, great, like we've got to this point of information sourcing and serving. Now we're going to go down even a NLU route. If we got to a certain point where like from here, we're going to go very button driven. You could do that technically in this assistant if you needed to. But obviously that's this RAG solution is great in like a in-app customer experience recipe assistant per se.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like on the NLU thing, potentially you could have an intent, which is like substitute an ingredient, which would then lead to a prompt. And then it would go, okay, like based on the fact that we've displayed this recipe last, like look at this variable for the ingredients and determine whether what substitutions you could make. And whether, the user has mentioned a specific ingredient, like, could I substitute orange for lemons here or something like that? Or then if they just say, I don't have any lemons, like, what could I use instead? And it could potentially provide you with a response. But you would have to probably build quite a lengthy prompt that can handle a whole heap of, it's quite flexible in what it can do.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic, Pete. Thank you for putting this much time into showing what's possible here. The chat was awesome to kind of brainstorm and make bots with everyone here. Pete, anything else that you need to show before we wrap up here, or you feel like we're good to kind of ship the template after the fact?
Yeah, no, I think we're good to ship the template. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, then on that note, we will share an email probably tomorrow morning with this project template, all of the prompts that you could use. A good question. That we will have all the prompts in plain text that you can use, either embedded into the project or sent in some sort of doc. Excited to keep doing these making bots. There'll be a post-event survey if anyone wants to fill that out. Let us know what you like, what you want to do more of. And we'll keep bringing the heat each month and showing what's possible with AI agents for customer experience, and with Pete leading the way. So thanks, Pete, for hanging out and waking up early for us.
All good, all good.
Awesome. Have a good rest of your day.